Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Paul Krogdahl and Ville Sontu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Fintech Daydreaming. Why is it special? Because this is the last episode of this season of our podcast. We're going to head off to our summer vacations and have a bit of a break. But before that, we're going to enjoy another episode of Nordic Fintech Highlights together with my friends Paul and Janne. So let's start with you, Paul. How are you today?
I'm good, Ville. I'm always good, particularly when we're recording a podcast episode. It brings so much joy and happiness into my life to talk about fintech and banking technologies and other strange things happening in our industry with you and Janne.
Indeed. Even though, of course, the mind starts to slip a little to the summer part of the equation, so to say. But I think we have plenty of good stuff to talk about today, and this always is fun, as you say. But Janne, how are your summer preparations going so far?
Very well. Was first time out with the boat last weekend, and yeah, looking forward to the summer. Except today it was kind of a strange feeling to come to the office and I had to wear a jacket. So we hope the summer will come back.
Indeed. We have a weird spring here in Finland. We've kind of gone up and down. It's been almost like midsummer heat, and now suddenly we're getting like a bit of a chill. But you know, that comes with the atmosphere of living in the Nordics. Again, something we're talking about today through FinTech news highlights. But let's get on with it then. We have picked, as usual, a couple of stories we picked up from the newsletter from last month, and we're going to be highlighting some of those stories. But before we go into the specific stories we picked, Janne, how was last month overall in terms of fintech, in terms of news and activity here in the Nordics?
So yeah, we can see a few quite clear trends. Last month or April was already very good in terms of investments, and the same continues now. So excellent funding month. Still the number of rounds is the same, but we saw a few really impressive rounds, and clearly we can see a trend under that. So impact fintech is really a hot topic. We had Clover. They raised $114 million US dollars. So they're basically providing an embedded finance solution for green energy solutions. So if you're selling solar panels or stuff like that, so then you can utilize their tech to provide your customers an embedded financing solution for that. Then another company, also from Sweden, Doconomy, they raised 34 million in round B. They're driving impact through financial data. And then the third biggest round is Trine, and they have a solution where you can invest in green energy in developing countries. So that's 3 in a row. Impact fintech companies making really big funding rounds, and really exciting to see this trend, and also to mention pretty much all the rounds in May were Swedish companies. So the other Nordic countries are lagging quite much behind in terms of investments. Then when it comes to partnerships, once again, account-to-account payments is something we see every week. But otherwise, RegTech solutions were playing a big role. Lot of buzz around those solutions. And then when we go to the banking side, again, Danske Bank is visible in tech investments. They're now in the footsteps of Citi and BNP Paribas. They're investing in a company called United Fintech. And then we also had some other news regarding Aktia and Swedbank and so on. But pretty good month overall.
Yeah, I like the kind of keywords that I heard in that update. Basically, it's embedded finance, environmental impact, basically value-based investing, data-driven, and most importantly, I did not hear the words artificial intelligence not even once. So I think that's a positive thing for now. But Paul, any reflections?
No, I think I agree with you completely. You missed out. There was nothing there about crypto or Bitcoin as well. So that was good.
Yeah, we unfortunately have to fix that when we do our individual stories, but we'll get to that a little bit later from maybe a bit of a different angle. But yes, indeed, I like these trends. I think towards the summer, it's nice to see that companies are getting investments, fairly big rounds as well. I mean, as far as I can see, maybe we're looking a bit of a slower summer period as usually here in the Nordics, and so maybe they're just getting these out of the books now before the slower summer months. So yeah, I think so. Definitely looking up. And we also saw the European Central Bank for the first time in a long time lower their interest rates just recently. So I think this is going to be a good sign for fintech investments as well. But that, of course, remains to be seen as a longer term thing. But I think the kind of slump that we expected in this space didn't materialize to the extent that we maybe expected towards the end of last year. But again, remains to be seen. Good. Hey, we need to move on with the agenda, of course. And next in the list of topics, as usual, we have the traditional fintech joke. So, Janne, do you have a joke for the audience today?
Yes, I do. This is a bit weaker one, but was it so that both of you are engineers?
Yeah, I'm engineer. Yep.
Okay, me too. So hope you get it. So why did the open banking API need a vacation?
No idea.
Tell me.
It was restless.
That one I actually like. I like that one. That was good.
Yeah, I guess you need to be an engineer or specific a software engineer to enjoy that joke. But yeah, I think a lot of our audience understands. That's a good one. Good one. Hey, come on! It's the last episode of the season. We actually got a good joke. It took a season, but we got there in the end, right? So it's all good. And by the way, if you did not get that joke, please write it as Fintech Daydreaming, and we'll be happy to give you an explanation of what that actually meant.
Yeah.
All right, good. But hey, let's get on with the agenda. And the next topic, of course, is that we're going to talk about individual stories we picked from the newsletter from last month. And first, Paul, what did you pick up from the long list of news?
I always find it interesting to look at all those different articles. There's actually so much news that sometimes you struggle with getting through it all, and sometimes it's hard to pick something that takes your interest. But I've got a passion for the whole notion of ecosystems and partnerships and collaboration happening in the banking industry. Sometimes we see banks trying to collaborate with each other and not necessarily being so successful with it. And a lot of the discussions tend to be around how banks can take advantage of fintechs or software providers to drive a growth in their capabilities. But one that really caught my eye this time was the announcement around Swedbank and Aktia going into a strategic partnership, where they're really taking the strength from each other across Finland and Sweden, although in this case it's very much focused on the Finnish market, where Swedbank traditionally be very focused in Finland on large corporates and capabilities around large corporates, where Aktia has been more focused on smaller SMEs and companies. And now with them joining strategically together, what they're doing is rather than individually trying to grow their capabilities, they are utilizing each other's strengths to enrich the capabilities and offerings that they can deliver to their customers. And they're doing it in a quite sort of well-structured way, where Aktia customers can take advantage of offerings and capabilities from Swedbank where Aktia don't have the capabilities today, and vice versa. And on top of that, Swedbank has also decided it's going to wind down its cash management and payment services that it offers in Finland today, and allow its existing customers and new customers to take those capabilities from Aktia instead. So it's an interesting dynamic where, you know, alone they don't have full capabilities, but jointly together they take advantage of each other's strengths to be able to grow the market and grow capabilities, particularly for their existing customer base jointly.
Yeah, and this deal was only for Finland, right?
This particular deal is only for Finland, but Swedbank have actually now sort of extended. They've got strategic partnerships now that enable them to deliver capabilities across the whole of the Nordic.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is there a kind of reciprocity on the deal, basically allowing Aktia to maybe work in the Swedish market, but maybe Aktia's focus is not outside of Finland at all. So maybe that's a redundant question.
Well, Aktia has been around for quite some time. I think, 200 years or something Aktia has been in business, but, you know, they have been very much focused on the Finnish market. So maybe like Orpea, they're going to continue having a sort of strategic focus purely on the Finnish market, but it remains to be seen. Maybe they'll use this as a way to springboard into other Nordic markets as well. Yeah. Only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I like this kind of consolidation of the smaller and mid-sized banks in specific markets. Swedbank, of course, being a major bank in the Swedish market, but in terms of the Finnish market, they are a much more niche players. So basically harmonizing their offerings with other players makes just a ton of sense from them. So again, interesting to see how this works out. Banks in general have not been good at working together, especially when it comes to dividing, kind of trying to cover a larger customer base together with their joint strengths. But again, as on a surface idea, it makes just a complete sense. Janne, what did you think about the story?
My first question is this open banking? But
no, I do not see it as being open banking. No, this is more about combining capabilities. Because open banking in itself is really just about, you know, account.
Sure. But yeah, I see a lot of sense in this because, of course, Swedbank it's a big player in the Nordics, but after all, quite small and very niche in Finland. So making this kind of collaboration with Aktia makes, of course, a lot of sense. And yeah, like you said, banks have not been very good in this area, but I think there has been also some other cases in the past years where especially smaller banks have been teaming up. For instance, like if a bank is not providing certain area like wealth management, so then they have a partnership with another player. And yeah, it's I think it's a positive trend, and there's been a lot of discussion around consolidation and also like is it worth to make something or everything by yourself, or can you collaborate? So this goes in the same area. But yeah, Paul, you had something to add.
Yeah, but it comes on the back of another trend that we've seen, which is banks actually pulling out of regions. I mean, Handelsbanken made a decision to pull out of Finland. So from that perspective, rather than banks trying to expand into every market and believe that they're going to be able to drive business in every market, it maybe potentially makes sense to partner with other banks to jointly, they are stronger than individually they're trying to grow. And it's not just Handelsbanken, there's been other banks globally that have actually started to pull out of markets that they have tried to engage into in the past.
Yeah, that's another story, by the way, which has been playing out for quite a while now, is this Handelsbanken's exit from Finland. There was speculation in the beginning that it might be bought up by some of the bigger players in the market. Hasn't really happened. So there's going to be some kind of sell bit by bit, and that's taking time. again, it's still an open book. We'll see how that chapter of Handelsbanken's story in Finland ends. But again, it's an interesting market dynamics change happening in slow motion, as they usually do in the banking sector. So maybe this story is not about open banking. Maybe we should call it like consolidated banking or something. Let's come up with a new term for this market dynamics changes maybe. Another related note I have to mention, Aktia Bank just got their new CEO named. So yeah. That is my old colleague and I could maybe say friend, question mark. Alex Lehtonen from Nordea is now the CEO of Aktia. And I think this deal and press release actually happened before he was officially announced as the CEO. So again, really looking forward what kind of job Alex is going to do in Aktia, and all the best to him.
Yeah, definitely an interesting case because Aktia has been very focused on the wealth management side. They acquired some stuff from Taaleri, but it hasn't really, gone super well. At least if you look at the stock price, it's been going pretty horizontal year after year. So it's interesting to see now with Alexi if they're going to do some bigger changes here.
Yeah, I'm sure he has some aces up his sleeve, and really looking forward to seeing how things will play out. Personally, I did become a customer of Aktia Bank when I had to get the new Finnair credit card from Aktia. But so at least they have gained a customer from me, if nothing else. But that's because they won the Finnair deal. Good. But hey, let's move on. The next story is brought to us by Janne. So which one did you pick?
Yes, so I'm focusing now on Doconomy. I already mentioned round B, 34 million euros. And so Doconomy, they are a company who is doing impact fintech. Their main area is that they analyze transaction data and do calculations on the carbon footprint and so on. They have also some stuff also on the wealth management side now, but now they are focusing also on the US market. So things are going forward. I remember when they were quite an early stage startup, they were collaborating with Ålandsbanken, and they had this Åland index system to calculate the carbon footprint based on the transaction data. I think Nordic was also utilizing it at least on some point in their wallet. And generally this is a very interesting area because impact carbon footprint calculation is super topical, and obviously financial transactions are basically when you pay something, you consume something is also what Monica said. So there is something about it, but is this a ready solution? That's I think the interesting question or discussion here. I remember when I personally used this Åland index for the first time. I don't know if I'm cynical or scientific, but I was like, okay, on what is this based? I move money somewhere, it makes an assumption, even though it doesn't really know what did I do with the money, what did I buy. So in terms of making that working, you should have basically the digital receipt with the item, like the product and item level data, and behind that data you should of course have like some background info about the products. And actually now I just recently discovered that when I'm using my K-Market app where I do my groceries in Finland, so they do have now this carbon footprint calculator, but also you can see like how much vitamins are you getting based on the purchases you are doing. So there is definitely a huge potential on the consumption, the carbon footprint, but also like on your health and so many other aspects. But in order to make this work, you should have kind of a standardized way of moving the receipts, and then have the kind of maybe a standardized way to to have the carbon footprint and all the other information about the products. So yeah, there's a lot of potential, but I wonder, will it ever be like a standardized thing or what? Yeah, sorry, that was quite a long sentence from myself, but what do you think about this area?
Yeah, well, Paul, maybe you go first. I'll have a few comments as well.
Yeah. There's so many different dimensions to this news. I mean, absolutely, it's good to see Nordic fintechs getting more funding, growing, looking to engage into new markets. Spreading over to the US is good. So from a funding and fintech perspective, great. It's fantastic. Taking the whole discussion around carbon footprints, like you delved into there, Janne, there is always a notion of greenwashing in my mind, and not necessarily by the fintechs, but by the players in this area. And obviously, we want to see funding going into ESG, carbon footprint, making the world a better place, and everything else. But also at the same time, I tend to get stuck in a dilemma. I do want to be good to the environment. I do want to leave my children a nice planet to live on. I don't want it to get completely destroyed. But very often, and particularly in the current financial climate, you end up in a dilemma between, do you focus on saving money or do you focus on saving carbon footprint? And I think there's a trade-off here that very often gets neglected by consumers. And also, like you said, the best people to actually give you a proper breakdown on your carbon footprint associated with your spending is actually the retailers, rather than the fintechs, because like you said, they don't have the full value chain associated with a product that you've bought. Now, it's different when you're talking about transferring money, or the cost or the carbon cost of doing an account to account transfer, if there is any, and how you calculate that. But so lots of different dimensions on this. Very positive on the funding and growth. A little bit more speculative on the whole carbon footprint and ESG and greenwashing.
Yeah, similar thoughts from my side. I truly appreciate the intent of these kinds of solutions. While it's difficult to have full transparency of the whole value chain and what is the actual carbon footprint, you have to start from somewhere, and these companies have. So again, you come up with the best possible estimation of a CO2 footprint. You provide that to the service providers that have the means to allow their customers to either offset those or allow the company themselves to offset, and then publish the information about offsetting those carbon emissions. I think all of this is good, but the greenwashing element here is, of course, quite clear as well. I mean, I haven't seen any specific criticism go towards Doconomy about how they provide their data, or how they provide the data, how do they actually come up with these numbers. I haven't seen any criticism myself around that. But it's been clear that in this space, there has been a lot of companies that have been coming up with completely bogus things, and then they have been tapping into this economy of hype around green solutions and sustainability solutions, without actually having any impact to the real problems that are really existing in this space. So again, kind of some market actors being very cynical about the money-making opportunities in this space, while harming the intent behind. That's, of course, something that we need to avoid, and has been difficult so far. I think the best way to tackle this, of course, is to increase the standardization, data transparency, governance transparency, and all these kind of auditability requirements when it comes to these things, to provide a trustworthy infrastructure for this data. And then on the other side of that, of course, making sure that when a company or an individual makes a decision to offset or compensate towards that data, then those actions are also meaningful, because that's the other side of this. And we actually had a podcast episode this a while back. Is the when you do this offsetting part of this equation, that's another part which is very sketchy, to say the best, at the moment. So what are actually these offset companies doing with those compensations? Are they just basically saying that, okay, now we won't cut down this tree, which we otherwise would have cut down, for example, or are they actually planting new trees? There's a big difference, and these reporting standards are far from perfect, and allows for bad actors to take advantage of these situations as well. But yeah, Paul, you had a point.
Yeah, there's one thing that always confuses me, and I would love to have more clarity on when we're talking about carbon footprint, particularly associated with these sort of financial transactions. What elements are actually used to calculate the actual carbon footprint of that transaction? Because the more I think about it, when you talk about a transaction of a financial value, do you include into that carbon footprint the carbon that the bank has created by actually running the IT systems that are facilitating that transaction? Or what about the payment rails or the payment infrastructure globally, and all of the other machines and servers and solutions that are part of facilitating that transaction, let alone you bought a product at core market, that product has got a carbon footprint in it because of the supply chain associated with it, but your transaction has as well, because it's going through multiple banks, multiple payment providers. They have a carbon footprint as well. So is all of that part of the calculation in the carbon footprint of a transaction or not?
Yeah, exactly my point as well. Again, there's no transparency at the moment for these reasons. I mean, what they would open themselves up for so much scrutiny on how is actually this being calculated. And then, for instance, on the point of what is the carbon footprint of a payment, for instance, do you calculate things like the overall CO2 footprint of the entire bank, including its whole branch network and all the kind of physical infrastructure? Is that part of the calculation? What part? And again, it becomes very, very complicated very, very quickly. I think the key here is to come up with a consensus on how these things are calculated and coming up with standardized ways of doing that, so there's no unclarity on how you do that. Then it just becomes a question of how you collect the data and how accurate is that data, so we don't have to worry about the methodology, which again is still unclear as far as we know, at least at this point in time. Janne, what do you think about the credibility of this data?
Yeah, for sure. It's very it's a mystery. So where does it come from? I think on a product level there are some maybe even standards, and they like to report that. But then again, you go to the grocery store. So is it counted that you have to heat the actual store and have electricity there and stuff like that? So yeah, like you mentioned.
So, Janne, like you mentioned, I mean, some banks, even in the Nordics, have provided CO2 data in their mobile applications. Have any of you done anything about that data, by the way? Just asking.
No, which was the other point that I was making, right? There is a trade-off almost for consumers between the impact of that data and the relevance of that data versus their financial stability and financial well-being, right? I think maybe the richer you are, the more flexible you can be on what products you buy and your carbon footprint. But for a lot of people in the world, it is more about how do I make my paycheck last for the whole month, and it comes down to what is the cheapest I can buy rather than what is the carbon footprint or environmental impact on me picking this brand of spaghetti over a different brand of spaghetti.
Yeah. Janne, have you compensated your CO2 in any instance?
No, I was just adding to Paul that on the other hand, the less you consume, the more you save and pollute. But yeah, also the CO2 offsets are kind of I was at some point thinking that should we start compensating our event like carbon offsets, buy them from somewhere, and then I started to get a lot of weird offers from different in different price categories and so on. So I was like, okay, this is at least some of them, these are very suspicious. So yeah, that's another world which is for sure there are good players, of course, without a doubt, but also it's got a wild west.
It is. There's absolutely not enough supervision and quality controls in place, and it's for us as consumers, it's very unclear what actually will happen if you do decide to do that. So, for instance, when I was buying my holiday flights, I think most of the airlines now offer the opportunity to compensate for the CO2 for the flight. But when you try to find out where is that money actually going, you don't get much information. That kind of puts me off on the whole thing, because again, I don't want to be giving any money unless I know it will make an impact, because otherwise it's just greenwashing in my mind. Good. Any final comments before we move on to the next story?
None from me. I think we really dived deep into that one.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Well, it's a topic that causes a lot of opinions, I'm sure. So I think it was good to have a bit of a longer conversation on it. Okay, good. So I'm moving on to my part of the news story update this month, and I picked, of course, like I promised, a bit of a teaser. Gave you a bit of a teaser in the beginning. It's going to be about Web3 and blockchain and crypto, and the specific news story was from a company called Realtime, or Reltime. Again, it's spelled REL time, which marks themselves as a Web3 artificial intelligence company. Yes, you heard that right. And they have launched basically a payment gateway technology. So what they're saying is that they enable merchants to accept payments in digital currencies and central bank digital currencies globally. The reason why I picked up this story is because it's an interesting thing to say, that you are allowing merchants to accept central bank digital currency payments globally. And I happen to work quite much of my working time around central bank digital currencies here in the Nordics, and knowing how far away these solutions are, and knowing that there's practically 2, maybe 3 deployments globally with any significance in the area of CBDCs, I really wanted to look into this story a little bit more. And unfortunately, what I found out was that it was basically a lot of hype, a lot of smoke without fire, due to the fact that, again, first of all, Realtime is not a licensed payment service provider in any jurisdiction. They are basically providing a gateway technology, which I'm sure is great, and will serve, especially in terms of accepting crypto payments. But pulling CBDCs into this press release was a bit of a stretch, in my opinion. And the reason being that the confusion around cryptocurrencies, what they call digital currencies in this press release, and central bank digital currencies is already massive. And I think these types of press releases only further contribute to this problem. Because at the moment, the way CBDCs are being built in any major central banks, they have nothing to do with cryptocurrencies. They have nothing to do with blockchains, even in most cases. And the crypto industry loves to confuse these two narratives, because they see the upside of, well, not only making press releases like this, but basically saying that, you should invest in Bitcoin because the central banks are building their digital currencies. For a person on the street that actually doesn't really know much about these things, that sounds like a credible thing. And I'm looking at the Bitcoin price right now at $71,000. Again, that might change by the time this airs. But I mean, it's baffling to me why people are confusing these things all the time. But then again, seeing these press releases makes me think that, well, maybe it's intentional by the market, and maybe this is part of the reason why there's so much interest in the crypto space in general. Furthermore, Realtime, I absolutely love this company's website, by the way. They describe themselves as an AI and Web3 company with a super app and metaverse enablement. They also have their own blockchain, which is a scalable blockchain with up to 72,000 transactions per second. Yeah, and they are a market-leading crypto application at the same time, and apparently a payment gateway provider at the same time. So they seem to do everything, and yet I don't see what they do. But anyway, my reflections. Paul, what do you think about these crypto companies doing press releases like this?
We're opening Pandora's box here, right? I don't even know where to start. I mean, first of all, yes, I agree with you. Anyone that tries to create a narrative that connects Bitcoin to central bank digital currencies in my world is you know, let's not confuse people even more. It's all back to this discussion around private versus public money. Why are we doing central bank digital currencies in the first place? The big difference between central banks versus private organizations. And, let's be honest, there's nothing really public about blockchains and Bitcoins either, right? Particularly not the way that they're distributed these days. And they're not really being used for payments. They're being used for speculation. People have bought Bitcoins and they're sitting there holding on to them. They're not spending them in any way whatsoever. Also, there was an awful lot of buzzwords in what you said, right? So you Web3, AI, cryptocurrencies, it's buzzword bingo. And I think I'm going to get off my high horse. I'm going to say good luck to them. I know there is a growth in Web3. I think there's some interesting stuff happening there. As to what they are trying to do, yeah, good luck.
So, Janne, what did you like about the word salad?
Yeah, so I was first, when I was reading it, I was like, wait a second, because they were mentioning cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and then payments. And yeah, like Paul said, I don't think anyone in the Western world is considering Bitcoin as a currency for paying things. It's an asset class, and you sit on it. I don't know actually how is it in some other developing countries. Are they still using Bitcoin because that's the most efficient way of transferring money, especially cross border? Then we come to the discussion of stable coins and different digital currencies, if they have their kind of use case in transfers and payments. Can they provide something that the traditional currencies doesn't? Maybe there is potential, but then yeah, when it comes to those and then the CBDCs, so yeah, my expertise is not enough to tell, but yeah, obviously it was quite AI blockchain hyped press release.
Yeah. And this is, again, nothing against the company real time. I'm sure they're trying to do great things and they have great teams working on fantastic technology. It's just this whole space that my criticism is aimed towards. And the point you made, Janne, there is that how are these cryptocurrencies, namely Bitcoin, doing in these developed economies? There's a saying in the crypto space, they say, do your own research. And I'm going to encourage all the listeners to do their research and go find articles and research about how the Bitcoin adoption has gone in El Salvador, the only country in the world so far who has made Bitcoin their legal tender. Spoiler alert, the stories will not be that great. They have a small bubble called the Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, with a small community of people very happy about this, mostly people who got rich of Bitcoin earlier. Having a good time, but most of the country hasn't seen any benefits, only downsides of Bitcoin so far. The only speculative upside, of course, is related to the fact that if people held on to their Bitcoin, the value has been going up for different reasons, and they see that as the potential upside of it. But that speaks to another point you made, Janne and Paul as well. It is a commodity that you hold. You don't use it for payments. Again, yeah, why would you ever use a Bitcoin if you only expect the price to go up? The only reason why people are getting those things in the first place, in my mind. And then another point you raised as well, Janne, which is a great thing to discuss, is that When I, for instance, talk about central bank digital currencies, the digital euro specifically, at my work or around my work, or even with my neighbor, actually, which I did yesterday, we had a small chat about the digital euro. Again, this person knows nothing about banking or payments. She was just asking what I do for my work, and I would start talking about the digital euro. And her first reflection was that, well, this is no different to paying today now, is it? And I said, yeah, that's exactly right. So from a consumer standpoint, it's just another app that you use to make payments. And then she said, well, why do I need it then? And it's always this question of why that comes up with CBDCs and the digital euro. And I won't get into the debate that it's a political, there's a strategic meaning for doing central bank digital currencies. For us fintech nerds, we have repeated those points many times in this podcast. But I do wonder, whenever we get a press release saying that somebody allows the merchants to accept crypto payments or payments with stable coins or things like this, nobody asks why. And it's just taken at face value, basically saying that now it's a fantastic thing, you can accept crypto payments. And nobody asked the immediate question we get with the exact same topic around CBDCs, which is why should I be using CBDCs? I think the question we should be asking is, why should we be using stable coins? Why should we be using crypto instead of just being happy about the fact that it exists now? And this is my final point on this is that, Janne, you said maybe there are things in stable coins that are more efficient than existing ways of paying. That's still to be proven to be true. But again, of course, we are happy to be proven wrong on the podcast and otherwise. But again, I think the same question applies as for CBDCs. Why? And really, is it more efficient? Really, is it better? And I think we need to be neutral across the board asking these questions. That was my rant on the topic. Anything you wanted to add on that?
I don't think there's anything more for us to add on it. Nope.
Yeah, yeah, that was well put, and yeah, interesting to see how this trend goes. And eventually, if we get the CBDC, so how that infrastructure is going to be built.
Indeed. So maybe a final note on the CBDC topic, as we're going to have the European Parliament elections happening now very soon, already happened by the time this airs. And this has an interesting implication to all the CBDCs in the European area, which is because, again, all CBDC projects are highly political. So if there is no political will behind these things, they will not happen either. So this is democracy in action, and we'll see how the winds will go. The current political environment seems to be pushing towards CBDCs. We'll see if that is true in 6 months or 1 year's time. Again, anything might happen when we're living in a democracy. Again,
yeah. Now, when you mentioned, so I didn't see in a single Vaalikone that they would be asking the two most important questions. What about the digital euro, and what about the plastic bottle caps?
I was looking for that exact same thing in these polling kind of engines, like you mentioned. So yeah, there was not a single question asked towards the candidates about any type of fintech regulation, financial services, or related topics on those things. The closest thing that I found was related to the broader impact of the digital agenda of the European Union, but that usually goes down to the AI path quite quickly. So people seem to be less concerned about the central banks and the bank regulation. I wonder why. I find it's a really interesting topic, but maybe it's just my perspective. Good, but hey, time to start wrapping it up for this episode, and we will end this time by saying our regards for the summer for the entire audience, and we will do that by going around the table. So Paul, what would you like to say to our listeners for this summer, and what to expect for next season?
I would like to say thank you. I thank you for sticking with us. It's been a fantastic journey. We are coming to the end now of season 9, which means that we're kicking off with season 10. We have still got all the energy and excitement that we've always had, and we will continue going. And it has been fantastic to see our listeners grow and follow with us and enjoying the contents that we're putting out there. So thank you for empowering us in doing this, and enjoy your summer vacation like we will, and we'll come back refreshed and eager to bring you more news and insights.
And Janne.
Yeah, thank you very much for you two guys for having me. Of course, it's been nice to have these monthly chats about the current trends. Awesome jokes, of course, both from you and myself. No, not really, but yeah, special thanks for the listeners. Of course, I've got some also good feedback and comments that it's interesting to listen to this stuff, and let's hope we can always get one step further and be better.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Janne. And from my side, I couldn't agree more. It's been a fantastic season. Again, the energies are still high after 9 seasons of Fintech Daydreaming. We will push ahead for season 10, starting, we hope, in August, but nonetheless, sometime after summer, we will start. We're already lining up some really interesting guests for the beginning of the season. So looking forward to recording those episodes and getting it out to you, dear listeners, as soon as possible. We will kick off with a bang for season 10, but for now we're signing off from season 9. And as usual, subscribe, like, so that you will get the first episode of season 10 once it airs after the summer, and you will get a chance to look back at all the episodes we have done so far. You will find a lot of interesting recordings, interesting guests, and maybe even some mistaken prognosis on the market, which you will have fun with, but we enjoy all of that regardless. So like, subscribe, comment as usual, and we will see you in season 10. This has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.